Started. Okay, so hello everyone. My name is Mariah O'Mara and I am the head of media here at HundrED. And I'm so excited to be with you all here today. I would like to first say a few brief words before I pass it off to our incredible speakers. Just want to set the intention for this call today, which is to facilitate a global discussion around the topic of teacher professional development through technology with a diverse group of education stakeholders. So that's all of you. So I'm going to briefly run through what you can expect in this call today. So after I'm done speaking, I'm going to invite our co-founder and executive director, Saku Tuominen, to say a few words. And then we will hear from Cristobal Cobo, the Senior Education Specialist at the World Bank Group, who will give an overview of the topic. And after that, I will jump back on and give us a model of what we are going to be doing in our breakout sessions. So we will have one breakout session focused on answering one question, and then we will come back to the larger group for a grouped reflection. After that, we will move into another breakout session where we will focus on another question around the topic of teacher professional development. And then we will come back for one final reflection, and I will share some more information about how to get involved and some next steps. So with that, I would like to invite Saku to say a few words. Hey, Saku, if you could unmute yourself and
I should be unmuted. I should be unmuted already, and so on. But anyway, so excited to be here. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good night, wherever you might be. Wanted to say 3 words about HundrED in the beginning. One of the reasons why we decided to found HundrED 6 years ago was that so much of the education debate globally is negative. We are concentrating mostly on problems and complaining. And one of our goals was kind of like trying to change the tone of the discussion, concentrate on positive, concentrate on solutions. And what is our mission is that we want to help improve education through impactful and scalable education innovations. So in brief, in a couple of minutes, what we do here at HundrED is that everything we do is starting with education innovations. And when we are talking about innovations, we are not talking only about tech. We are not talking only about profits. We are not only talking about something gimmicks or superficial or kind of like gimmicky. What we are talking about is that we want to identify impactful and scalable education innovations, something that seems to be working in one country and has potential to work in many other countries. And we are really analyzing what is out there, what is valuable, what is great, what works. And we select 100 innovations annually. And in addition to this one, we are also doing spotlights. And one great example is the one we are concentrating today on teacher development. Then once we have identified those innovations, what we are doing is that we work really hard to give these innovations credibility and visibility they deserve in each and every continent. And we are promoting them, we are creating articles, we are creating connections and so on. And I think that no matter what the problem any educator anywhere in the world is facing, quite often there are solutions in other countries, in other continents that could be of help, either so that they can be implemented or that they can be an inspiration. And we want to be creating these connections. So it's partly about visibility and it's partly about connections. We are listening to innovators carefully, and then we are asking what kind of help might you need? What kind of connections might you need? Do you need connections with media? Do you need connections with education stakeholders? Do you need connections with founders? And we try to create them. But also in addition to this one, we are also listening to education stakeholders, whether they are ministries or head of the education in cities and so on. And we are listening to their solutions, and then we are helping them to implement these impactful innovations at scale. So this is kind of like the essence that we are trying to do. And at the core of everything we do at HundrED is our community. And we are having 100 ambassadors in over 100 countries. We are having 100 country leads in 30 countries. We are having 100 academy and so on. So we try to understand what is out there and what works. But the deep kind of like the deepest core of everything we do is child. Everything we do always starts with a child in mind. So the kind of like the big end goal is to help each and every child flourish in life, no matter what happens. But I'd say that an interesting part, kind of like part between child and the community, is actually the topic of the spotlight and the topic of this webinar as well, which is teachers. And I couldn't speak too highly about the work, for example, the teachers have been doing during these difficult times and so on. So we really value the work teachers are doing. But also, I think that the whole education ecosystem, the whole education community have to be really good at helping teachers to flourish, because if teachers are not motivated, if they are not energized, if they are not getting positive feedback, if they don't have the tools to redevelop, I think that it's going to be really complicated to help each and every child flourish. So that's why I'm deeply grateful for each and every one of you in this webinar, that you are joining us and helping us to identify these valuable, impactful innovations. And mostly I'm grateful for the whole team and everyone at World Bank, because none of this work would be possible without you. HundrED is a global education nonprofit, and we flourish, we survive only with the help of great partners like World Bank. So really excited, not only about this webinar, but also about the spotlight and the solutions, innovations that we hopefully will find during the following months. So with these words, back to you, Mariah.
Thank you so much, Saku. That's the perfect segue into a little bit of an introduction about what is a HundrED Spotlight. So HundrED Spotlights are small, focused collections of innovations within a theme and or region, themes such as teacher professional development. So spotlights explore innovations within the scope of thoroughly gain insights on those education innovations to share them with the world, all for free. So, as Saku mentioned, one such spotlight project is the Teachers for a Changing World Spotlight. This is a project created in partnership with the World Bank, with financing from a Global Partnership for Education. And the purpose of this spotlight is to identify and share leading solutions from around the world that are helping teachers to thrive in an ever-changing classroom. So through this spotlight, we aim to find scalable solutions that enhance teacher in-service professional development. And as I mentioned, the World Bank is our partner in this project. And so I'm so honored and privileged to be able to say that we have Cristobal Cobo, the Senior Education Specialist at the World Bank, with us here today. Cristobal is focused on the effective and appropriate use of new technologies in education. Before joining the World Bank in 2019, Dr. Cobo spent 15 years working at the intersection of the futures of learning, cultures of innovation, and human-centered design. So with that, Cristobal, welcome to the virtual stage.
Thank you very much, Mariah. And first of all, let me express my gratefulness for all the team for putting this event together, and to all of you for allocating some time. Hopefully this will help to get away from the Zoom fatigue, and it's going to be an interesting discussion. So let me present very briefly 3 questions that I would like to invest this 10 minutes or less, which I think are important. One is why teachers? The second one is where technology can be helpful and in what circumstances? And the third question will be, what are we doing? So we all know that teachers matters enormously. They have such an important influence in shaping the future of many. However, highly qualified teachers is a scarce resource in many countries. And this is not a fault of teachers, but in many cases it's a system level fault. Their impact goes far beyond the academic and cognitive development. They have strong implications in the social-emotional, but also they are an endless source of inspiration. Now, during the crisis, we have learned that they plays such an important role. And when we say we, I don't mean only practitioners and academics and experts, but also I mean families. Families are really have understood much deeper the implications of how difficult it is to be a teacher. Now, we know that with technology, we can support teacher professional development, but it's true also that in some cases, that integration doesn't bring the results expected. So, and sound integration of technology, it does really play a key role. Now, technology can be used for many things on the teacher profession. It can be used for teaching, regardless if it's whether a low-tech solution like a simple SMS or a printed material with a QR code, or a high-tech solution with a very data-intensive adaptive systems. However, in order to integrate technology properly, there are some capacities that need to be acquired among teachers. So we have seen for years that the integration of technology in teaching might bring to different kind of results, regardless of how cutting edge is the technology. And now during the pandemic, we have seen a huge diversity of remote learning experiences, blended learning, and in some cases in person. Technology can be used for teaching with technologies in these settings that I mentioned, but also can be used to teach about technology, developing some digital literacies or some media literacy. Now, the effectiveness of the technology will depend on a number of elements that are heavily influenced by the pedagogical effectiveness, such as understanding that the technology will bring some sort of decentralization of knowledge, will facilitate some flexibility in the knowledge production and some forms of collaboration. But also, we have learned during the crisis that the integration of technology in remote learning will require that teachers compensate the lack of human interaction with some level of regular support and feedback. It's not only about the cognitive component, as we all know. Now, technology, when well integrated, it will facilitate different forms of experimentation, peer-based learning, problem solving. However, in order to make those components happen, we really will require some level of teacher's readiness in terms of contents, being able to adapt the content to a specific context. It's not going to be only about delivery. To design an effective pedagogical strategy, which again, we'll have to adjust to the context and understand when is a good idea to offer synchronous or asynchronous learning, what kind of adjustment we have to do in terms of the duration of the lesson, or in terms of how to administrate the time and the interaction. But in the third element of teacher readiness will have to do with monitoring. How can we do the best of the technology with the resources we have? So the better we track that, we will be able to adjust. Now, in order to follow all this appropriate integration of technology, we will have to have a sound teacher professional development. Now, some of the things that we have learned based on the evidence is it will be important to transition from some traditional ways of providing teacher professional development, such as those highly disconnected, focalized on memorization or very theoretical ideas, and opening the room for based on practice kind of workshop, focus on specific problems that are happening in the classroom. At the same time, transitioning from this one-off training that we saw a lot at the beginning of the pandemic to a much more permanent and regular and iterative process of teacher training. A third idea that we have learned is it's not necessarily good to incorporate good practices from a completely foreign environment. We'll have to do some adjustment in order to make them locally relevant to the specificities of certain environments. Rather than focusing on the killer technology or the killer app, it seems to be much more effective to offer an ecosystem of tools that can be adapted to the community, but at the same time, being sure that the most effective technology is the one that is already domesticated within the community. Now, if the workshop is only on the tool center, we are missing part of the pedagogical component, and how can we sparkle some elements of management and a strategic point of view in order to assess the effectiveness of that. Some of the pre-pandemic vision were making a strong distinction between the online, the purely online and the offline. And now we have learned that this has to be much more combined, much more integrated in the way that we learn in the different forms. And finally, instead of only focusing on delivering learning materials or lesson plans, it will be really important to ensure that that is enriched by a community. So we can provide trainings for individuals, but it's a good idea that these individuals are always connected with a community that can adjust the relevance of that, provide some feedback, and enrich some of the methods with some local experience. A clear example is when you offer a video of a teacher teaching to other teachers for the training. One thing is to see it by yourself, and another different business is to have this discussion as well with your community to assess collectively what are the relevance of that. At the World Bank, we have defined 5 principles that we think can be helpful for this discussion. The first one, which I think is self-explanatory, is making the teacher profession attractive at the societal level. Number 2, improve the pre-service education. Number 3, improve the selection, allocation, monitoring, and feedback of teachers. Number 4, and I think it's going to be the goal of this discussion, provide high quality professional development. And number 5, as well connected with today's conversation, use the technology wisely. So we have regularly implemented strategies to support countries, but on the top of that, we have developed a number of global public goods, which are resources, methods, instruments, and strategies to support teachers by whomever wants to use this material. So let me briefly mention some of them before I run out of time. One is understanding what is happening within the classroom. My colleagues have developed this platform, which is open access and free of use, called Teach, which is a classroom observation material to run diagnostic of how the lesson is happening within the classroom. And in order to provide specific support, we know we have developed, and my colleagues will release very soon, a platform called Coach, which is focused on provide in-service support on in-service task, and also developing some of the critical skills that teachers will require in these challenging times. And Coach also integrates some level of some resources of structured lesson plans for those who might be interested to use. And let me finish saying that as a complement of that, we are super excited in this partnership that HundrED and the World Bank has been developed, which we call Teachers for a Changing World, which is, as I was well mentioned, we are trying to find impactful, scalable solutions which are enriched with technology. It doesn't have to be cutting edge. It can be low-tech solutions, but they need to have some level of impact. So in order to promote and replicate them in different environments. I don't think we are going to get very far just if we say that teachers are essential. At a system level, teachers are critical, and we will have to develop the best cognitive and human resources to effectively transform the life of many. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Cristobal. And I think that's the perfect way to start out this discussion. And I've noticed that in the chat, people are asking if you could share the resources that you mentioned. I would think everyone would be interested in learning more about those. And we've got a few more points to get through before we break into the groups, but I actually have one last question for Cristobal Cobo. I have been spending some time listening to the World Bank EduTech podcast, and you close every session asking your speakers if they could share one book or podcast that speaks to them. So I will ask you the same question and say, please don't share your podcast because I will promote it myself.
So great, thank you so much. One of the books that I read recently that really was super helpful wasn't about teaching, but it's all about teaching without saying that. It's called Nonsense, The Power of Not Knowing. It's written by Jamie Holmes, and he explained us how can we take decisions when we have lack of information or too much information, which I think is exactly the struggle that many educators are dealing with. How can they make the best of it with filling the gaps, bringing the experience and all resources. So I really encourage you to have a look at that book.
Thank you so much. If you heard me typing, it was because I was writing it down. So I hope that others have done the same and to check that out. Now I'm going to spend a few minutes talking about the breakout sessions, and I will ask my colleague Romain to, at this point, share her screen so that everybody can see what I'm talking about. I know we've done a lot of listening, and as we've said, the point of this conversation is to talk. So thank you so much, Romain. As you can see, we're using the tool Padlet. So in just a few minutes, we're going to break into breakout room discussions. You should have around 3 to 4 people, more or less. Also, please note that the breakout discussions will not be recorded. So if you turned your camera off earlier because you didn't want to be recorded, I would request that you turn it on again. However, if you do not have access to video, then no problem. I hope that everybody in your breakout room will still create space for you to speak, whether it be through audio or text. We know that everybody has different contacts, different access to technology, and we just want to make sure that everybody is heard. So first, what we would like is if you could go around the room and introduce yourself. Each person should spend no more than 30 seconds to tell everyone who they are, where they're from, their context. I will send a little push notification just to make sure that you're staying on schedule. After that, if you could please elect a note taker. So this person should be responsible for adding your discussion to the Padlet. So if you see for this breakout session will be focused on breakout 1. So that is not your room, that is the entire question. So in this first session, we are going to be addressing what are the most pressing challenges with teacher professional development in your context. So if you need help getting started, we have added at the top some discussion points to help ease you into the conversation. But the note taker could press that little plus button at the bottom. Then you can start taking notes. And it doesn't need to be very long, but just if we could synthesize what was happening in these discussions, as they will not be recorded, just a few points about the lived challenges or perceived challenges from the discussion or research that you have done yourself. But really the focus of this should be to have a conversation. So don't get too wrapped up in writing anything down. The most important thing is that you have a great conversation. So it's only 10 minutes, and I will give you a 1-minute warning when we're supposed to be heading back to this session. So with that, I will start the breakout rooms, and we will the breakout rooms. Give me 1 second. But again, there should be about 3 to 4. If you have any questions, feel free to either leave them in the chat. Now I will remain in this room, so you can stay here with me for a little while. Looks like you might have a little bit more people in your room, just given the amount we have here today. And with that, I am going to send you on your way. Okay, have a great discussion, everyone. It looks like everybody is starting to come back. I hope you had more time. I was just saying there's either too much or not enough, but I'm sorry I cut your first discussion a little short, and I promise it was not intentional that I cut the challenges short so that you had to focus more on the solutions. But as everybody is coming back, I would love to hear how some of these discussions were going. Oh, Khadija had a lovely discussion, so great. And I would like to invite some people to maybe share with the group. I'd actually really love to invite Clara. Clara is our new education specialist, so she's working with our research team. She has just started, so I would love to use this opportunity to introduce her to the larger group and also really unpack what was happening in your discussion. So Clara, could you tell us your key takeaways from your second discussion?
Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for this wonderful presentation. We were having a very interesting conversation in both groups. Do you want me to speak about the challenges, or?
As you like.
Yeah, okay, well, very briefly mentioned that first we were saying that we identify a lack of qualification in some context for teachers. That's a big challenge. There's also not access to technology in all places. So that's also, of course, a challenge for teachers, especially now in COVID times. And therefore, there's a lack of connectivity between students and teachers in these difficult times. And also, some participants mentioned that it's necessary to have a change in the mindset to make sure that all teachers have this sense of that they can change the world and empower them and make them feel that they have this power and this motivation to make impactful changes. So that would be from the challenge discussion. Thank you.
Great, great. And would anyone like to share maybe some of the discussions that they had in the solutions? Lisa, maybe you, I know you came back a little bit too early, but now you piqued my interest in what you were discussing in your group, since you are so wanting to go back.
Thank you. Yeah, I made a mistake there and left a little early, but we were in such a great.
Oh, sorry about that.
That's.
So,
Are we all right there?
yeah, sorry about
Okay.
that, Lisa.
No worries, it's a technology day. We were in a great discussion about one of the colleagues in there, Bruno, brought up about teacher burnout and, you know, some of the expectations around professional development and around teachers. And so one of the things that we were discussing was about really helping to fortify that emotional experience and support teachers. And what are some of the solutions for doing that? So really, from a policy perspective, taking some of the pressure off of teachers and the expectation of achievement, and really changing some of those traditional paradigms of how we see achievement for teachers and students, and also emphasizing the learner relationship. Both teachers and students are learning together in some of these changes. So really, how do we emphasize that dynamic, and increasing some self-directed experiences for young people to be more exploratory in learning, and to take the pressure off of some of that traditional academic piece, and then giving teachers their permission to really explore their feelings as well in some of these experiences, and decompress about what's happening. So it was a great conversation. Thank you, Room 5.
Mariah, can I make a really short comment on Lisa's comment about the burnout and so forth? The discussion we had in our group was that so much of the development seems to be happening in active teachers' free time, meaning on evenings, during the night, during the weekends. And as great as it is, it's not a long-lasting model. So you have to find slots to develop yourself during the days as well if you want to make this sustainable.
Absolutely, Saku. Great comment there. And I think we're only beginning to see the real impact of this teacher burnout. Yes. Oh, and Richard, yes, if you've got your hand up, would you like to share?
Yes, thanks, Mariah. Derry Hannum put a comment in chat that I'm wondering if he could comment a little bit about what he's saying about genuinely democratic. My experience has been that when teachers have democratic relationships with their students, it takes a tremendous amount of stress out of the classroom.
That's a great point. And would you like to share a little bit more, Jerry? We've got just a few more minutes. I know it's not enough time to talk about such a big topic.
I completely agree with the comment about the need for planning time. I think there are 3 requirements that teachers have to work successfully in the kind of student-directed, democratic, rights-respecting context that there seem to be a lot of interest in. Teachers, first of all, they need time, absolutely. And that planning time should be built in, developmental time should be built into their schedules. They shouldn't have to be expected to do it again at home. That's quite ridiculous. And as a principal, I always did this for all departments and all the integrated studies. The other thing is the team, that teachers shouldn't be isolated on their own. They should be encouraged to work collectively, collaboratively, and then they need the right territory. They need the right kind of school premises in order for the team and the time to work effectively. So if you like, there's my 3 T's for this discussion. But I'm meeting more and more young teachers and teachers in training who want to learn about how to work in a more participative way with their students, in a more equalitative, facilitative role. They want to be able to do this, but they're getting very little help in their teacher training or from their post-training development in this. And I think we need to take that very, very seriously, or you'll end up with the situation we've got in England, where 50% of our teachers want to get out of teaching within 5 years of coming into the profession. And if it's having that effect on them, what effect is that having on the students?
Absolutely, Darren.
You'll have to tell me to shut up, otherwise.
I'm going to right now in the nicest way. But to your final point, I think the Successful Teachers, Successful Students report from the World Bank speaks to that issue very well. And so I would just like to let everybody know, I know that we focused on those first 2 columns in the Padlet, but in the final 3 columns to your right, we've added some relevant resources. I see people sharing in the chat. I encourage you to also put them there. That Padlet will be here after the session. I will be sure to send it again in a follow-up email. And one final, as we start to close this, I know I want to be mindful of everyone's time and we're running out of it, but I do want to say that if you have a solution that is addressing teacher professional development, I think we can all agree how necessary this is right now. So if you do have a solution, please consider applying to the Teachers for a Changing World Spotlight. My colleagues will drop more information in the chat. You can also find it on the Padlet. If you don't have a solution, but you know someone who does, or think somebody in your network might, please, please, please share this information. As I said, all of our spotlights are available for free. So once we find these solutions, we will share them. And that is the goal of this, to start this conversation so that we can really find the solutions to address it. And so I know that I'm teetering on 1 minute, but I would like to ask everyone one final favor. If we could just take a group photo, again, if you don't want to, that's fine. But I would like to at least capture some of these faces who are here with us today. And if we could just give a little smile. And it's so great to have you all. And a wave, thank you so much. Oh, it's beautiful. And I really hope that you had nice discussions and that you were able to meet some others who are able to talk about this really important topic. So with that, I will do one final activity before I release you. When we started this session, I asked one word to describe how your day was going. And now when we end the session, I would like to bring it back. One word to describe how you're feeling after this session. You can say it out loud and it will be just mindful of your ears, but also please leave it in the chat. So 3, 2, 1.
Encouraged.
Inspired.
Connected.
Great. Oh, refreshed, encouraged, inspired. Oh, thank you so much, everyone. I'm so glad. I hope you had a nice time, and I hope to see you next time. We will drop a feedback form. Please do fill it out. If you want to hear more about more topics like this, other topics, if you like this kind of discussion, please let us know. We will host more. We'd love to hear from you. Thank you so much.
Excuse Maria.
Yes.
Maria Mala. Excuse?
Yes, Mariah.
Can I create one? We discuss some few things before we close, please.
You can have my email. I will leave it in the chat, but I do have to be mindful of everyone's time. So thank you so much, and goodbye, everyone.